Hey guys, this is Isa, and I'm gonna narrate a battle between myself and Raish. I'm sorry, I don't really know how to pronounce your name. I'm gonna go with Raish. This battle was played in week 2 of Pokémon Online World Cup. I was representing Team Europe, or more specifically Team European Union, and Raish was representing US West. Heading into this battle, I had beaten Latra, and Raish had his first game of the tournament. His team had a bye during week 1. Without further ado, let's jump into it. So we can see there will be a lot of specs here. I'm skipping forward a bit because I'm deliberately waiting several minutes in order to get the spectators rolling. But we can see the Jinx versus Alakazam. This is one of the worst matchups for Alakazam, since Lovely Kiss is 56.25% guaranteed sleep. That's as good as it gets after paralysis. And yeah, Jinx does connect with a Lovely Kiss after Thunderwave. It should be noted here that Raish he's known, he and a few others, people like Golden Gyarados, Lutra, they're known for their one true team. So when I came into this battle, I had tried my best to create the ideal team facing Raish. And this was as good as I could come up with. And turn 2, we get the Snorlax into Chansey matchup. Normally this is heavily favored for Snorlax, however, I'm very aware that this particular Chansey is a variant that does not... it disregards Snorlax usually. It has Reflect, Thunderwave and Seismic Toss along with Soft Boiled. I seem to completely forget about that and go for Earthquake, and that's a misprediction that I should not... Yeah, as noted in the chat, Raish had PM'd me prior to this battle saying I'll change my team, and then, yeah, forgetting about that due to health issues. So Raish confirms that he's running the same team as he usually does, which is a team... I haven't played versus it for quite some time now, but from the top of my head, the most notorious thing is this particular Chansey. It's Reflect, Thunderwave, Seismic Toss, Soft Boiled. There's also, if I remember correctly, there's Exeggutor, that... and Raish is particular with his Exeggutor in the way that he likes to save his sleep and use it as a deterrent for slower Pokemon such as Slowbro. There's a Slowbro on Raish's side as well of the field. There's a Tauros, and I believe there to be a Snorlax as well. I honestly don't remember right now. The chat continues on and on and on. I'll skip forward a bit. Yeah, so from Snorlax enters Jinx. Thunderwave connects with Jinx, obviously not doing a lot. And we get a Seismic Toss reveal that connects onto the Alakazam. Paralysis is exchanged. As you can see, I have very few ice moves on my team. Therefore, going for a freeze on the unparalyzed chance is not... it's not an option, whereas Slowbro really prefers having Chansey on the opposing side. Recover, after taking 2 Seismic Tosses, Snorlax comes in, throws a Hyper Beam immediately. I don't stay in and try my luck. Instead, Slowbro gets to reveal itself and soak the Hyper Beam. Paralysis is thrown, and this Snorlax is now paralyzed for quite some time. We can note that there's already 10 turns in, there's 5 Pokemon in total with status effects. I take the turn to set up Amnesia, and Snorlax is fully paralyzed, so it can't do anything. I predict self-destruct from Snorlax here, preemptively getting down to rest myself up, but Snorlax instead just goes for Body Slam. Exeggutor is revealed, not a surprise. Psychic gets a critical hit, that stings. Without the critical hit, that would only tickle me, 10% damage tops. But with a critical hit, it does 37%, that's obviously very much. And yeah, wish I had drained. Mega Drain critical hit would for sure KO me there. Sleep Powder, I block that with my Jinx. Jinx being the most common overall good counter to Exeggutor in the game, especially when paralyzed, as it cannot be slept. However, I believe in this situation that it might have been preferable for me to get something slept so I could use Slowbro more freely. Body Slam connects onto Chansey, and Chansey does not get paralyzed. If it would have, I would have been in a great spot. Hyper Beam would have killed, most likely. Not guaranteed, but most likely. But to be honest, I'm not sure if I'm packing Hyper Beam this game. I think I do. Thunderwave connects, leaving Chansey at only 21%. That's very little, and it's in... Yeah, I take the turn to reveal Reflect. So I'm very... Oh yeah, now I remember my Snorlax set. So this Snorlax set, I shall keep it a secret, but Reflect allows me to soak some Snorlax damage and win the 1 versus 1 unless Raish has Reflect on its own. Problems asking, isn't Reflect bad anyway as everything crits? And Raish disagrees, saying that it's good against slow stuff. Indeed it is. And Raish has a team that's very slow. So I was... my mind probably... I can't say anything right now because it was too far back. But it was probably... because Raish has a very slow team. Alakazam takes the sleep, and then there's only Tauros with a high base speed. Everything else is at Exeggutor level or slower. Anyway, Raish switches out into his Exeggutor. I get a bit unlucky with a full paralysis. A Body Slam there would have been very convenient. Psychic is thrown, not bouncing off, dealing very little damage. Question is, how does Raish capitalize? And he goes into Rhydon, and he gets lucky. I don't get to heal up, I don't get to use Psychic. That was in fact my move, I confirm in the chat. And Psychic without a critical hit would deal about 50% of the max damage. That's obviously a lot. So that would have been very influential on the battle. But that doesn't happen. Instead, we have a switch to Exeggutor. Raish hopes that I'm eggless, but I'm... Here's a tip for everyone facing me in any situation ever. I will almost always carry Exeggutor. I believe it to be a great Pokemon, one that's very difficult to stop. Well, not only stop, but also it's very convenient. So I get to throw Stun Spore at Raish Stun Spore, and here's the 4th status Mon on Raish's side of the field. That's gonna be an inconvenience for him. Unfortunately for me, I have 3 paralyzed Pokemon as well. So the question is, who can capitalize the most? And Raish has the opportunity. He has an unparalyzed Rhydon, and Rhydon is probably the Pokemon in the game that appreciates having paralyzed opponents on the field the most. Snorlax also favors having that, but he can create his own paralysis. And Raish makes a very good double switch. I go into Jinx in a flowchart moment, and he predicts that and goes into Chansey, which allows him to get soft-boiled. Now it's time for me to heal up. My Slowbro is at 36%, that's very little. I can Amnesia once before tanking, well, anything, because Chansey doesn't have Thunderbolt. It has Seismic Toss. But Chansey takes the moment to set up Reflect. I take the moment to set up an amnesia, so now I'm not as vulnerable from Executor when I go to sleep. But what I'm hoping for here is not to kill, it's mostly to get an opportunity to set up a rest. Because once I'm down to 1-hit KO percentages from chances Seismic Toss, I will have to rest up. But this changes things up a bit. I use Surf as I want to maximize my stay before resting and eventually being thrown away from the field. And Chancer gets the full paralysis. That's quite convenient. I'm now into a range from... I can now 2-hit KO him, is what I'm trying to get at. I'm not pulling the trigger on another Surf. Instead, I'm going for the very safe play to get rest off without having to tank 25% of my HP as Chancer uses Seismic Toss. So we have Executor entering the field once more. Slowbro at full percent, still sleeping. And I decide that waking up and trying to predict is the best play. And I get lucky. Executor does go for the sleep powder, but it misses. So here the question is, should I switch out into my Jinx once more, or Alakazam, or Snorlax, blah blah, or should I allow something to take sleep? And I believe that, I switch out to Alakazam. I believe that to be the correct play. I think that playing in an essentially 6 versus 5 situation is favorable for me. However, as long as Executor isn't, as long as I'm forced to rest, Executor can keep coming in, and once I wake up, it can throw sleep powder at me and, well, stop my potential sweep. So I can never really use my Slowbro to full effect until sleep is landed. And because I have so many paralyzed Pokemon, there's quite a shortage of Pokemon that can take the sleep. I'm obviously not gonna let Tauros take the sleep. If I use Slowbro to take the sleep, well, then mission accomplished for Raish. And if I use Executor, well, that's the remaining alternative. But I really want my Executor alive and, well, not sleeping in order to keep Raish's Rhydon from running me over. Everything on my side of the field except for Tauros and Executor are outspeeded by now. So everything will have to take 2 hits before attacking back. Tauros can take an Earthquake the best, outside of Executor of course, but even he takes 40%. That's not gonna cut it. Either way, I'm not commenting as much on the battle as I should. So we have Chansey versus Alakazam. There's Psychics, Seismic Toss is thrown up. Both of our sides have revealed Reflect, and we have used Reflect. So this is mostly a battle of who gets to switch out first and lose momentum. The question is who can capitalize the most, and pardon me, it's not very crystal clear. Alakazam really doesn't want to spend all his Psychics on Chansey. Chansey, on the other hand, has quite a lot of PP. However, Seismic Toss and Recover both have 32 max PP. And I've kept track of how many Seismic Tosses this Chansey has. So at this point in time, I'm using Recover to really negate every single PP, and it's more likely that Seismic Toss will be used, or rather, it's very unlikely for Alakazam to run out of Recover PP, even if I were to sit here all day versus Chansey, because once Chansey doesn't have any more attacking moves, pardon me, there will be very few moments for Alakazam to use Recover, mostly against, I don't know, Physical attackers won't really appreciate the coming in and take Psychic. Alakazam dies fairly quickly if it doesn't have Reflect Up, I mean. And Exeggutor, well, that's a very slow grind. Anyway, Chansey switches out and doubles into Snorlax after getting a Specs drop, predicting my Tauros switch. Very well done. So the question is here, do I stay in and attack or do I switch out? And I decide to stay in, going for Body Slam. No critical hit, no full paralysis for the Snorlax, but no paralyzed Tauros either. So we're just exchanging damage at this point in time. Snorlax at 46%, it is inside Hyper Beam range, but it is in the upper range, so a Hyper Beam would have to get fairly lucky. I would say there's roughly a 30% chance of KOing, not factoring critical hits. Pardon me. I maybe shouldn't have recorded this while I'm sick with a cold. No. So Slowbro comes in. I'm not sure if I predicted a boom or not. We'll never get to know. Snorlax doesn't do anything. It's fully paralyzed once more. And Chansey comes in onto Slowbro. Slowbro uses Surf. I think I anticipated Exeggutor just wanting to get some damage in on it. But this doesn't really help me. This does way too little damage to be stable. Amnesia it is. That's more or less forced if I want to break this Chansey with Slowbro alone. Pardon me. I should have bought a glass of water. Another Surf, another full paralysis. Raish is lucky that the Pokemon being full paralysis so frequently is his Chansey and not something else, because it can always heal up again. 28%. I keep doing these moves predicting the Exeggutor to switch in, but it never does, and I think that had I knew that, I should have gone for further Amnesias, and yeah, now I finally do that. So we're at a +4 Slowbro, boosting to +6 is, I mean, it's obviously better than being at +4, but it doesn't add too much damage. It only boosts damage about, I'd say 20% extra. So it's a bit questionable. Anyway, Thunder Wave is thrown, so I'm now slower. Seismic Toss is thrown. I go for Amnesia once more. That's foolish. And Seismic Toss again, I'm forced to rest. Chansey is fully paralyzed. Very fortunate for me. Exeggutor wakes up, switches in, pardon me, Slowbro wakes up. And now I am slower than the Exeggutor because I've been paralyzed. So if I stay in and go for Surf, I won't get to actually hit unless Exeggutor is fully paralyzed or misses. So, the question is, this constant threat of sleep really hinders my Slowbro, but I don't have anything else that can take the sleep. So I decided to let my Slowbro take the sleep. And Raish is obviously satisfied finally getting to sleep something. So we're having 8 out of 12 paralyzed Pokemon on the field. Tauros comes in. Slowbro soaks 2 Body Slam and 4 sleep turns, counting the first, without waking up. It's quite unfortunate. Exeggutor comes in on a Body Slam. It doesn't get a critical hit. The Body Slam isn't a critical hit, nor is it a paralyzing one. So here's a situation. Exeggutor at 52% is very likely to not die from Hyper Beam. Blizzard critical hit KOs, Body Slam critical hit probably KOs. Explosion does not KO Tauros. I have shown Stun Spore, so Tauros might be very fearful of that. The question is what Raish decides to do. If he wants to play it safe, he can go to either his own Exeggutor, his own Chansey, or Alakazam. And if he wants to, well, get something out of the way, he will just attack. So Snorlax and Rhydon Snorlax paralyzed 46%. That cannot enter on a Psychic. Stun Spore, if it enters on anything other than a Psychic or Explosion, it can survive though. It will survive, I should say, unless it gets a critical hit. I get a critical hit Psychic. That's fortunate. I think I predicted Raish to switch out, because otherwise I would have gone for either Stun Spore or Explosion. And the critical hit, that's, well, obviously I'll take that. Solid damage, etc. Raish goes for the Psychic. I switch out to Jinx. Now we're back to this. And it's turn 71. Nothing has died yet. This is a very long battle. And Chansey, 59%, comes in. Jinx doesn't get to do anything, fully paralyzed. If my mind serves me correctly, this is a rest Jinx. I'm not sure, but I think it is, so it can deal with the Chansey. But this Chansey is a bit of an issue. I go for Psychic, fishing for Specs drops, and yeah, this confirms to me that I really am rest variant, because otherwise I probably would not have done that. Critical hit after a full paralysis, that's very fortunate. Reflect is thrown up, but 50% chance with a Specs drop, that's gonna be, I think it might be I think it's 2-hit KO'd from Blizzard here. I'm not confident, but I think it is. Obviously depending on accuracy, etc, etc. But it also depends on me not being paralyzed, whereas Raish has to be paralyzed. Blizzard does 29%, so that would have been a 2-hit KO. And the full paralysis does not kick in. And we're at same situation as last turn, except Chansey has 21% more HP, which allows us to tank another attack. Jinx is fully paralyzed. Chansey heals up. I gotta go for another Psychic, fishing for more Specs drop. Chansey is fully paralyzed. The fortunate thing about this is that Raish does not really have great other answers to Jinx, because his team is banged up or sleeping. I get another Specs drop. That's very fortunate for me. Now Blizzard will sting, even for Chansey. If we're looking, it only has 6 soft boils remaining, so I can stall quite decently here. Raish says that this won't go to PP stall, but some PP will get drained, and it will affect the mentality. Blizzard is thrown, connecting with Alakazam 33%. Alakazam at half HP. That's not going to be a good tank for long. And Raish goes right back into Chansey, resetting the Specs drops. I go to Snorlax. We'll see what happens. Reflect, boo-hoo. Snorlax is full paralyzed. Yada 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 yada. Seismic Toss connects. Alakazam is at 113 HP. Recover does come out, so Rhydon does not threaten the immediate one-hit KO at least. This forces him into a minor mind game. Substitute is used. I decide that you're not gonna use Earthquake on me this turn, and I was correct. Psychic did connect through paralysis, and Rhydon lost 25% for nothing this turn. So that's progress. Earthquake predicted going into Exeggutor, tanking it, and fortunately enough, I'm at just outside Rock Slide range. So Exeggutor lives yet another attack from Rhydon, no matter what it is. But my team is really getting washed up right now. If we look here, you can see that nothing I have is at max HP, and at some point in the very near future I will have to get messy and break his Chansey by pure force. We'll see how that goes. For now I'm using Psychic, connecting with Exeggutor down to 60%, paralyzed as well, and right now it feels very likely that Raish is gonna throw an attack at me and I will switch. I do switch, but let's see, yeah, there's a Psychic. So Jinx, threatening Blizzard, something's gonna have to take damage. I don't believe it to be Alakazam. Nope, it's Chansey. And I predict that going for the Psychic. Psychic once more, Seismic Toss. Jinx is now at 32%. That's enough to live one more Seismic Toss, but really not enough to live anything else. I'm gonna do something off screen. Okay, back. Full paralysis on both sides. And I'm not sure what's gonna happen right now. I think this is the time where I've realized that this is just all guns blazing from this point onward. I can't stall or I will get beaten up by Rhydon and Tauros. So there's no more time for healing or stalling. And we can see that overall both of our teams are quite weakened. So with a proper setup, both of our sides can sweep. I get a critical hit Psychic where and Seismic Toss comes out. So I'm down to 2%, chances at 46%, no specs drops. So I'll have hell to get lucky here. First step towards that has been happening. Full paralysis on Chansey. Psychic connects 13%, that's not a lot. Critical hit to Psychic will not KO here, take note of that. So if I want to kill it, I'll have to go for a critical hit Blizzard. I don't get that, but I get another full paralysis. And now Chansey is finally going down, dying to one hit from anything on my side of the field except from my sleeping Slowbro. So the anticlimactic double full paralysis. And we'll see what happens the turn afterwards. Will it? Yes, there's the Blizzard. It connects, and the first blood is spilled at turn 96. That's gonna be the signal for a lot of more action. Now that Chance has gone down and Raish's only recover user is sleeping and at 51%, whereas my Alakazam, paralyzed 85%, can't soak any of the physicals. And my Jinx, obviously 2%, Slowbro 52%, sleeping. It's gonna be a full-out offensive battle, who can kill the other first, rather than who can frustrate and set up against the opponent first. This is the time where we both start going at it. I think that I'm gonna respond to a comment here. IS's team is kinda in Tauros range, I think. And we can note here, Executor is, Jinx is, Slowbro isn't right now, but it's sleeping. Tauros, not yet. Alakazam is, Snorlax is not. So after the obvious Jinx sacrifice here, I am very strapped against Tauros. I go to my Snorlax here. I could also go to my own Tauros, but since I was pre-damaged, I would obviously not be favored in that matchup. Body Slam, and I'm just outside Hyper Beam range, so Tauros has to go for another move before securing the kill. And if you remember, earlier I had shown Body Slam, Earthquake, and Reflect. Usually this is accompanied by Rest, and this was entirely what Raish expected, as I confirmed in the postgame, but I had Hyper Beam for my fourth move. It was a well-kept secret, but it meant that Tauros was now down to 12% instead of what it would have been. It's gonna die from any hit, is what I'm saying. It cannot switch in on anything except predicted recovers or similar things. And I confirm that showing Reflect plus Earthquake means that everyone will expect the rest. The only disadvantage of having Hyper Beam over Rest or any other move here, when I built the team I was insecure, should I go for Self-Destruct here or should I go for Hyper Beam? And in the end I decided to go for Hyper Beam because I wanted the longevity. But in the end, with Self-Destruct I would have been KOing Tauros instead of just taking it down to 12%. That's obviously a big difference. So now we're at a 4-5 situation. Tauros versus Tauros, but Raish decides that this is not the time to play games in Tauros Dittos. Instead, it's the time to sacrifice sleeping Alakazams. This means that Raish will have to keep my Exeggutor from entering on Rhydon because it can be slept. However, that's not too big of a deal because most likely he would go to his own Exeggutor either way in that matchup. So losing the sleep clause here isn't really as big of a deal as it could have been. So I'm not sure who's in the thinking tank right here, but I'm gonna go do a quick breakdown here. Exeggutor can switch in on my Tauros and live. Snorlax can if it gets somewhat lucky. Alakazam dies. Rhydon can live a Blizzard, so that's an option. But the best option I think here is to go Exeggutor and threaten, at least threaten. Not necessarily go for it, but threaten the explosion, which would KO my Tauros. Going for Psychic as well is also fine, because if I switch, it's obviously gonna be better. But otherwise, it will deal very much damage to my Tauros and would put our future Tauros Ditto into a complete 50-50, whereas now I am outside of Hyper Beam range and Body Slam range, etc. Raish could go for a Rhydon here. I don't believe that to be the proper call. I believe that Exeggutor here is the play. Snorlax could also be the play, by the way. It's a bit up in the air, to be honest. Snorlax is most likely carrying Explosion. I mean Self-Destruct. So the key for me in that, if he brings in his Snorlax, is to make sure he blows up on something other than Tauros, because outside of my own Tauros, I have nothing to stop his Tauros. My Exeggutor can't live a hit, my Alakazam can't live Hyper Beam, my Slowbro can't wake up in time to hinder his Body Slam plus Hyper Beam. So the issue here is that if he explodes on my Tauros, I am losing the game, flat out. Raish decides that Exeggutor is the key to exploding on the correct target, or at least threaten it. Psychic is also fair. So it's unclear. What will he choose to do? I could go for the Blizzard here, trying to get the kill through a critical hit. And this is also... It's an opportunity for me to send in my Exeggutor and explode with it. Since it has very little HP, still enough to block one move from Rhydon though, but generally it's not very useful. I could take the moment to explode and bring down a threat, or just threaten the explosion. This is where the mind games come really into play. And other options, Alakazam. That's probably the safest bet. Alakazam is probably my least useful Pokemon right now, because it cannot blow up, it can't do any meaningful damage to Exeggutor, and yeah, it's outspeed by everything. So I do indeed go for to the Alakazam, my least useful Pokemon in this scenario, outside of the Sleeping Slowbro, but going there would just be a pure momentum sacrifice, which I'm not a fan of. Alakazam, it dies to Explosion here. That's a guarantee. I'm not positive if it lives through a reflected explosion. But it was a good switch. Laurel asks, and I confirmed that it was, but the key really is how we go from here. Psychic can be used here, and it would deal enough damage to mean that Tauros Hyper Beam would be a guaranteed KO, which is obviously very relevant, whereas right now it's outside of Hyper Beam range. So yeah, I go for Psychic. It gets a critical hit, but Executor goes for the explosion. So we're at a 3-3 situation, and now we're at a situation where if Tauros comes in for Raish and I send in my Executor, I have to sacrifice my Slowbro and bring in Tauros. Hyper Beam would be enough to KO. If he brings in Rhydon or Snorlax, though, I am in a favorable position. Especially if he brings in Rhydon, less so if he brings in Snorlax. Rhydon doesn't have the matchup advantage against either Executor or Snorlax, so he won't bring in that. Snorlax has 50-50 percentages versus both Executor and Tauros, so he might very well go for that. Tauros loses to my Tauros, wins versus my Executor. I think that in this case, the best play is to go to Snorlax. Tauros is very much needed. The one player that wins the Tauros Ditto wins the game. Because if I go win the Tauros Ditto, he sends in, say, Snorlax. I go for Body Slam, he kills my Tauros. I go to Executor and use Psychic 3 times, KOing Snorlax, KOing Rhydon, and winning the game. We have Executor versus Snorlax here. And this is gonna be a game of statistics. Psychic here does not KO. Critical hit Psychic does. Body Slam from Snorlax does not KO. Hyper Beam does. Self-Destruct does, obviously. But it's very unlikely to see Self-Destruct here. And if I want to blow up here, I obviously have the opportunity to do so. That would bring this game into if I'm thinking really hard, I would say that it is in my advantage. If Rhydon, if Executor and Snorlax are removed from the field, I will send in my Tauros. If I lose the Tauros matchup, I lose immediately. If I win without taking a hit, I am I have a better than 70% chance of winning the game. And what's happening is that Psychic's thrown and Hyper Beam misses. That's huge. I believe that Self-Destruct would have been... I think Self-Destruct was better than Hyper Beam because Snorlax is... Pardon me. Because Snorlax wasn't that useful afterwards either way, and there was no real preference to what move that would be used. Tauros comes in, 12%, it outspeeds Executor. If I go to Slowbro here, I do. I soak the Hyper Beam, and I get to switch out into my own Tauros. And here it is. This is the opportunity where I am almost guaranteed to win. The only chance that Raish has here to win is through Blizzard freezing my Tauros or Hyper Beam connecting and getting a critical hit. That has a higher chance of happening, so he should go for the Hyper Beam crit. And I don't have anything that can soak the Hyper Beam, so it's 100% safe. But if I win the game, the speed tie, I win the game. Even if I lose the speed tie, as long as my Tauros doesn't die, I win the game as well. But there it is. Hyper Beam, critical hit, speed tie win. That's a rough 10% chance of happening, but it's a deal breaker. Tauros now has to miss either Blizzard or Hyper Beam, whatever he goes for. Obviously, it's going to be Hyper Beam. And he does not miss it. Slowbro comes in to die, and the game is over. At turn 96, the first Pokémon went down, and at turn 111, the game was over. And it was a 2-0 victory for Raish. A very tight game, very well played, I believe. I think that it was a very well played game, as I said. Anyone could have won that. I had the advantage in the end, but I got unlucky. However, I think it's unfair to say that I deserved to win, because I got lucky with the RNG just moments prior. Pardon me. And as we know, it's a red, blue, yellow. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. Stay tuned for more videos from me. Until next video, I'm gonna get a glass of water. Until then, this is Isa signing out.